Hey everybody, Don't Distraction here, coming to you live from Atlantic Studios. Thought I'd do a quick back to the drawing board, talk about comic book shorts on my drawing table, and continue working on this Nuke Force drawing. So this is the drawing we've been following the process of. Major Grit, Mr. Malto, Claudia, Pump Station, The Bad Guy. This is going to be used for issue 2. Really had a lot of fun drawing this. Thank you so much to everybody that's liked, subscribed, thumbs up, shared. DylanDistraction.com, that's my YouTube channel. Make Comics Cool, that's my Patreon. Dylan Andrews Art, Atlantic Store, Atlantic Studios. Really enjoyed drawing this on YouTube. It was really fun. So I went in and did a bunch of blue lines on my Strathmore 300 series 11x17 Bristol, and then went in and did all the inking, so directly over the blue lines. So the benefit to that is I don't have to erase. I've talked about that. Erasing just really wears down the inks and adds a whole nother step, which I don't love. And so Todd McFarlane, an artist I'm a huge fan of, said a while ago, like, oh yeah, no, if you do blue lines, then you don't have to erase. And if you look at a lot of this old John Romita stuff, which I'm a huge fan of, a lot of this stuff, they're doing blue lines. So I'll show you. I'll try to find one. See that? See all that blue line in there? They're doing a lot of blue lines. It was pretty common because it allows you to ink rather quickly over blue and then not have to erase all of the underdrawing. And I really like that technique. So that's the kind of stuff I'm being inspired by. So that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. So you see here the blue lines. A lot of blue line here around Spider-Man's figure. So I don't mind if the originals have blue line on them. Doesn't bother me. And once I scan it, which I just did, I scanned this one, and then I drop out all the blue and punch up the contrast, and then you get this. So this is the same image brought in to Procreate. So I like Procreate quite a bit. I've been using the features in Procreate to do a lot of digital coloring and a lot of illustration. I could have done this entire drawing in Procreate, but it's nice to kind of, for this video, show the process and all the steps and parts and pieces. So hopefully you get a kick out of it. I get a kick out of drawing traditionally. It's just kind of fun. It's a different set of muscles. So what you'll find is a lot of these lines that seem kind of thick, once you scan it in at 400 DPI, everything tightens up, right? So there's definitely some variety in the line quality, but you'll look at this stuff and you'll see, yeah, it looks pretty similar to the digital illustrations I'm doing. So hopefully it's kind of indistinguishable. You'll get some of this sort of fraying. That's a good indicator if you're like, is he working digitally or traditionally on this piece? Some of that sort of stuff, a little bit of dark to light. The contrast isn't perfect on everything, but for the most part, a lot of the stuff I'm doing digitally and traditionally should feel and look similar. You'll see here, though, this is something I did want to give away. I can go in, so I'm using all these craft tone inking, and I have a Nuke Force palette set up here. The Rusty Nib, which is a True Grit texture supply, that's the one I'm using primarily, and then craft tone dots for the coloring. But for the Rusty Nib, I can create a new layer. And see right there, that little sideburn? I didn't have it. And so I drew it in here after I'd scanned it. And I'm like, I'll just drop it in digitally. So dropped it in digitally, just pushes that ear back, but you couldn't see it because I just didn't see it. So if there's at any point anything here, I go in, I can touch up stuff, I can move stuff around. I'm not super precious with it. It's all just kind of, it's commercial art, so I don't feel any sort of, nothing here is sacred. This is the logo dropped in. It's the Nuke Force logo, so I left space for it, so that goes there. What else? Oh, the blue lines here are added in digitally. See? Shows me trim and bleed. I can move this around if I need to, but you'll see it's pretty close. It goes out to where I want it to go out to. So if I need to, I can extend things past that. But I'm pretty happy with the location of how everything's laying on that. I can move it around if I need to. But the other thing I do is you can flip it, right? So now when I flip it horizontally, oh, that sideburn moves, so let's get rid of that. When I flip it horizontally, you'll see I go, yeah, there's some things maybe in that jaw that I might fix. That eye's a little crooked. So there's stuff I can't do easily traditionally. So what I might do is just duplicate this layer, lock this one, turn it off, and now I can work in this one and make some adjustments if I need to. So freehand, I'll just select that. And some people might be like, well, then that's, you know, you might as well just do it digitally. It's like, I don't know. I kind of like being able to go in and just do stuff like that. So now when I flip it again, right, see how that looks a little better. His head looks a little wonky there, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just kind of bring this down a little bit. So I think doing something like this. And I could go back and touch up the traditionally drawn one if I wanted to, if I felt like it was necessary to, or if someone was like, oh man, I want it to look exactly like the printed one. Can you retouch the digital one? Or if you did any adjustments on the digital one, could you make those adjustments on the traditional one? Like, I could, but I don't see the need to. I think it's fine. It's good to have two different versions. They're pretty close. And you'll see here the digital line and the traditional line should feel pretty similar. You might catch a little bit of a difference, but once I throw in the paper texture over it, should be pretty indistinguishable. And again, I'm not super picky about it. Let's black this in. I should have just blacked this in on the original one. Like that. Like that. Like that. And again, this is commercial art. You know, this is not going to be hung in a gallery anywhere. This is for me to draw comics, and I want it to be as accurate and fun as I need it to be, but I'm not super stressed if it's drawn digitally or traditionally. It's a hybrid technique, so I'm drawing parts of it digitally, parts of it traditionally. The comic book's drawn digitally, so I don't think there's a problem with drawing things traditionally and digitally. Again, I'd like to thicken up this jawline here a little bit just to make it look consistent. Something like that. But it's 90% there traditionally. Just this extra 10% is just some touch-up stuff. And it's just when I flip it horizontally, because it's hard to see unless I hold it up to a mirror. If I'm working traditionally, it's hard to see things that are really wonky unless you hold it up to a mirror, or if you do something like this where you flip it. And I do a lot of flipping it when I'm drawing digitally. So there, that feels better. I like how that looks. These characters, that all seems groovy. This guy in the back, that seems groovy. I could reduce the size of this hand a little bit, just because it is a little big. Just because it is a little big. So I'll freehand that. That feels a little better. Yeah, that all seems good. Right, so that's cool. I need to change this eye even more. Maybe a little bit more. Good. All right, and I'm going to flip the whole thing back again and then double check it again. So looking at it now, yeah, see, that feels better, right? See how that feels slightly different? And even in this point, I could still move stuff around if I needed to. So maybe move this one over a little bit. Just a scoochy dooch there. It still feels very similar to the original drawing, but I'm kind of happy with how I tightened up his brow. And I could go over and do it here if I want to, like that shape there. I would bring this down a little bit with his hairline. Right. What I'm trying to do is stay on model with these other illustrations. Right. So it seems consistently like the same character and doesn't deviate too much. So I might do, oops, nope. Something like that. Just to make sure that looks groovy. And I'll just drop in that sideburn right there. And then I'll get rid of this one. Don't need that. So then, okay. So then if we look here, this is the original, Oh, nope, hold on. Let's flip this one back. Okay. So then here we can just kind of compare what I did for changes. So that's the original. That's the changed one. It's subtle, right? But you can see once I drop that eye down and round out that head a little bit more, it's in the tighten up the jaw a little bit. You can't really see it over here in this one, right? It doesn't look that off until you bring it in, flip it, and make those adjustments. So we'll just keep that one just invisible. I think that looks groovy. Everything else is groovy. I could go in and touch up or do more work here on these figures, but what you'll find is once I start doing the color, it really, those little things and parts and pieces become just kind of part of the charm of the illustration. You don't want it to be too perfect, because if it's too perfect, then that ain't good. So I'm gonna drop this down to 31%. That's the black plate, so you'll be a 31% black, which will look like, let me go into my craft tone dots, black 100%. So for like his face here, hold on a second, gotta change this to be multiply so you can see the stuff beneath it. I'm gonna lock that one just so I don't accidentally draw on it. And then that's what a 30% gray, solid gray is gonna look like. And so you'll see in the comic book that his mask is gray, and that gray is just a 31% K. So again, you see here with my palettes, these are the palettes I'm using, the craft tone palettes. So it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And then that's a straight black. So that straight black just goes like on like this. And the nice thing about working digitally is you can do things like bucket fill. The way you do a bucket fill is just click and drag it over. Bucket fill. There we go. So that's his mask will be that K. This will all be that K. 31% black, 31% black. That'll help to push that forward. Actually, you know what? No. This character will be the K. That'll be black. That'll be black. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just come in, be like, all right, you got to do all that black. That's about it for that. I don't think there's anything else in gray. But then the other thing I'm going to do is a 20% dot screen. So this would be like a zipatone, right? And I'm going to put that on the K level there, which is 100%. So then this will all get that dot. So this, the figure, the character, Mr. Malto gets this. It will kind of make the red look more like a dark red. So then that's all going to get that. If I wanted to here at this point too, I could draw out further. Like if there's lines I want to have continue out, I could do that here. I don't know if I'm gonna. So then this will all be that. Like this. And then this is where you just kind of sit back, put on some music, and zone out. Because the decision making has been done. I already know what the color schemes of these characters is. I know how to create them digitally. I know how to color them digitally. I've done it a few times now. And so that is kind of on autopilot. So this is a good time to put on a movie and put on a good album, put on a good two-sided 2LP album, and just zone out and start coloring. Because the first phase with the penciling, there's some thought involved. You have to kind of think about where things are going to go or how they're going to look. But once you get into this portion of the process, much less thinking for me. I know, and everything's been blocked in. I know where everything's going to be, so I can just go through and start putting in this stuff, right? And it comes together real quick. You'll be like, oh yeah, it looks really dope. So then over here, and then occasionally what I'll do is just make sure I'm on the right layer. You can lock all the other layers if you want to. Double tapping here to switch between eraser and brush. So you'll see that it switches here over on the side. So I've set that to do that because I do draw and erase rather rapidly. So that's like that. And then this is all going to have that zipatone dot like this. That'll help to make that look like a dark tone. And it doesn't have to be super accurate because the comic books I love, the stuff I'm going for, Ramita. See if he's got any zipatone in this bad boy. I bet he does. Let's see, where would he be using it? Guess they didn't have the money to buy sheets of it back then. Don't see it being used very much. I wonder if this was before it was really a thing. I don't know, he must have used it somewhere. Maybe that's something he didn't really implement. Yeah, I'm not really seeing a lot of it. That's odd. If you had said, does he use zip-it? I would have been like, sure. Didn't everybody back then? How else would you get a gray tone? Guess he's doing gray tones with cross hatching. Yeah, no, I don't see any. That's odd. Maybe it wasn't implemented until later on. Even spots where I'd be like, well, he'd use it there. No, didn't use it. Guess he's letting the colors kind of decide. Beautiful work, though. I mean, you just look at the stuff and you're like, yep, that's what I'm going for. And so when I'm coloring, I'm looking to do these flat colors, right? So these sort of flat colors, not a lot of gradient, not a lot of rendering, just a lot of flat color tones. So that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. So you'll see that in my coloring techniques, classic coloring techniques. So, but no zip tone, so that's fine. I'm doing it. It's too late, I've already decided I'm doing it. So that, we'll push all that back. Push all this back. All right, so right away already, and his hair has it in it. Like this. So there, already. Feels more like a finished comic book illustration. See? Da-da-da. And I could, again, extend these out further if I wanted to have the figure go off the page, but I think it's fine. I'll just block all that in. It's kind of trimmed to invert. I'll put it on this layer. We'll just, so that, see that sort of border? I don't have to draw anything really past that. So I might draw some of that in there. Maybe, I don't know, see how I feel. I could just bring the whole thing down too. Just some room to roam on the top there. We'll see. Once I lay it out, I put it in the template for the comic book page. I might be like, I could move it down, or I could draw a little bit more, but not gonna worry about it right now. So back to the black, 20% zipatone dots. Probably do a lot of this. I might do the whole background with it. It might be kind of cool. Let's see how that looks. And you'll notice sometimes the marks I'm making will disappear, and it's because if I double tap with 2 fingers like that, see how it goes away? And if I tap with 3 fingers, it comes back. So it goes away, 3 fingers comes back. So I've done it so many times where I tap and untap that you'll see me do it rather rapidly. And if I'm moving the page, it's 2 fingers, so sometimes the 2-finger move the page will make something disappear, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. Mildly aggravating. And that's when you take the iPad and throw it across the room. No. Furious. I'm just furious about it. I'm not furious about it. I can get over it. So maybe I'll make all that like that. I don't know, I'm not sold on this. This is kind of the spot I knew I'd have to do some thinking. Where I'm like, how far into the background do I want this character to go? A lot of this is going to be, I could just make it all just one tone. Maybe. goes to here, like that. So yes, this is how quickly I draw. Try to draw briskly. And before, I was doing a lot more rendering. So I would have done gray wash, and I would have done color pencil, and I would have done a bunch of gibberish. But now you just kind of throw in a couple of these like that, and like that, and you're like, yeah, it works. See, kind of helps to define that area. That's a bit big. Okay, thank you. It's a bit much. Something like that. Bende. I think they used to call these Bende dots. I don't know. You go, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'll probably do the same over here. Now, I could buy this stuff, this Zipatone stuff, this plastic sheets of these moire pattern Bende dots, and do it all traditionally. I could. Not gonna. Don't need to. Like, this works just as well. And again, I could, but then you'd have a real jumbly sort of mess with all this. It's not impossible. I think people do it. Obviously, people still do it, I think, but I like just kind of doing it like this because I'm not coloring it traditionally. So why do I care if I Zipatone it digitally? It shouldn't matter to me. And again, if people are like, "Oh, I gotta have the original art be exactly like the printed material," I'll be like, "All right, cool. Then I'll buy and do it." But this is faster, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of experiment a little bit. Where I'm like, "What about if it's right here? Does that look dope or does that look lame?" My hands are so cold, it's not reading the button. Does that look cool or does that look lame? Kind of cool, I guess. Go with that. Kind of helps to define that shoulder a little bit. Clavicle. Something like that. Something like that. Yeah, looks cool. All right, what else? His face. I don't know how much I'll put on his face. I might throw in a little bit right now. I could always decide later to take that off if I'm like, it looks a little dark. Once I get the flesh tone in there, that'll kind of help me decide and see. But looks cool. And then these figures will all have that on them. Also, I can do a little rim light here. So, gotta go through and color everything in now. But that's how I just block stuff out with Zipatone dots. Again, they're all these craft tone dots. So these are at 50%. I decreased the size of all of them because they were really big. I can show you, but these are the craft tone dots, the way they come in the package. See how much bigger that dot is than that one? That just felt huge, so I decreased it, and I'm using a 50% craft tone dot. So that's the only difference. I didn't change anything else. So cool. So next phase is go through and do a cyan layer, magenta layer. That's why I have CMYK here. They're all multiplied layers. So the cyan layer, I choose the cyan color and hit it with cyan. So I know that this background image, let's say I do a 70% cyan on the cyan layer. So I would just drop in that cyan color there and fill it. Right, so see how that just kind of fills in that cyan layer. And I might make this whole background image just a green tone. And the green, again, is just cyan and yellow. It's limited color palette, classic comic book coloring techniques. I don't have unlimited numbers of colors. I have a limited palette, a limited number of colors. And I prefer that because if you look at those old comic books, there's a beauty in that sort of limitation. I can't choose whatever color I want. I have to choose whatever color I can make out of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So if that's my blue, I'll put all that in blue. And I can change my mind too. If I'm like, I don't know, that blue's a little dark, I could go for a lighter blue, which would be the 20%. See how that's just lighter because it's less dots. So I'll do that. Let's go back to darker blue. But I want a pretty dark green. So that means heavy on the blue and heavy on the yellow. That's how you get a thick, rich green. And that rich green will help to make that back figure pull back and the yellow figure pull forward. All right, that's looking groovy. I think you get the idea. Stay tuned. I'll keep drawing this. DylanDistraction.com, that's my YouTube channel. Dylan Andrews Art, make comics cool. Batlantic Store, Batlantic Studios, Nuke Force, coming to Kickstarter 2025, baby. Tune in, tune out, tune up. It's going to be great. Tuna fish. It's going to be great. So definitely subscribe, like, thumbs up, comment, share, do all those things. I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to really build my online portfolio, my work, so that people can enjoy watching the process and learn, so that you also can make comics. Make comics. Please. Make as many cool comics as you can. Just make comics cool. All right, so that's how I do the blue, and then I'll just show you quick. Yellow will be select the yellow, select the craft tone dot that is yellow. So that one. Could do a solid one, but see, and then when you go in, you go, oh yeah, look at that. My mind sees that as green. Right? Right? See how your brain thinks that's green? It's a combination of yellow, blue, and black. And it gets you a dark green. So there you go. Magic. Now anybody can do it. I'm going to drop all that in yellow. That will be yellow. But this is going to have to be a light. I think that'd be a light blue. So you get light green, dark green. Make it a lighter blue. Light green, dark green. Make sure I'm on the blue layer. Occasionally I'm not, and then I gotta start it over. So we'll do that. You can get the idea. Ta-da! And then work, and you'll have a beautiful comic book. Probably. All right, thanks so much. DylanDistraction.com, make comics cool. Dylan Andrews Art, Batlantic Store, Batlantic Studios. Like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, share. Okay, thanks. Bye.